Let's talk about the state of the Mavericks, though. They get a win last night over the Wizards. Shout out to Klay Thompson, 7 threes in the first quarter. A lot of fun to see vintage Klay show up last night. As you cover this team as intimately as you do, what is your state of this team as we get ready to turn the calendar from January to February?
The state is on hold, it feels like. It feels like we're just trying to get through this stretch. I'm sure you guys have been talking about that a lot, where the most frustrating thing about this whole stretch and this whole, honestly, season so far is we know this is a good team. Like, there is a good team in there somewhere. It's just been stripped away of all these different players all the time. I mean, Najee Marshall, God bless him. Like, this man has the plague again now, it seems like. And he's been out longer, and now Lively's out, and Luka's been out for this stretch. And it's been tough to try and watch this team and know, man, I know that there's a good basketball team in there, but we just have to wait until start to get some guys back and start to see some of the fruits of it. But I think we are getting to see some benefits of the injuries if you're going to look for any silver lining. And if you've ever listened to my show Locked on Mavs, you know that's what we try to do, is we try to stay positive, try to find ways to find good in some of the bad things. And I think the Klay Thompson game last night was a great example of that. How much were we talking about Klay's touches? He got 36 touches. I think I undersold it on my show last night. It was 36 touches over the last 2 games before the Wizards game total for Klay in like 50 something minutes played. And I think he got that in the first quarter with all those threes and everything that he had going in that first quarter.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to see it. It's, I thought I don't know where you fell on that discourse. I haven't listened to your pod in a few episodes. Apologies.
You weren't supposed to say that on the show. You're supposed to wait till after the show to say that.
I subscribe and I listen to a lot of episodes.
Appreciate that confession there, Tim.
There are many of them, Nick. But yeah, I don't know exactly where you fell. I thought that the discourse was a little bit overblown in terms of Klay, and I think it's just hard to get him shots. He's not going to be creating for himself, and so sometimes there's just games that go by where it's just his gravity at work rather than him lining up. And it's like even last night, it's not like the plays they were running for him are brand new plays they just installed in the offense. They just ran them with a little bit more frequency, and they were playing the Wizards.
Yeah, they didn't invent pin downs between the last game and this game. That's not like what they decided.
It despite what some people online were seeming to say, yes, this is something that they've had. But anyway, it does feel like the sun is rising. Like, you're starting to see it. Like, I think this road trip is going to be rough. There's going to be some rough moments on this road trip, but I think it's going to be okay, because it really does feel like as soon as they're back home, if they can just get back home and get through this road trip, that things are going to turn up. That Luka's return will be imminent, if not even, who knows? Maybe he's back the first home game at the little afternoon matinee against the Rockets.
Yeah, they're 3 games over 500. They have this 4-game road trip. If they're a game under 500 and Luka then comes back, and that's okay. Like, I think that's staying afloat, which is what we all could have asked for them in this stretch. Those 2 wins over the Thunder we're going to look back at them and see they're so massive. Maybe they should have been wins over Charlotte and New Orleans instead, but at least they got those 2 wins too. And yeah, it's also, I think the Klay Thompson thing was good last night, but then seeing PJ Washington be the player that he's been. I mean, I was kind of waiting for him last year a little bit, waiting to see him expand his game a little bit. I think there's not enough time last year for him to do that. But in this year, I was worried he wasn't going to be able to do it either because of how many bodies the Mavericks just had to feed at a certain point. But now he's been leading the Mavericks in shots in a lot of games. He's been showing his ability to play make off the dribble, to get his own shot, which is not something that I think we really expected PJ to do when the Mavs traded for him, but that's been a big bright spot too, is to see the growth in his game.
And I'll also say, and this is easy to say looking back, a little bit selfish and self-serving because we talk about every game, but if I was given the choice between Dallas just beating every bad team and losing to every good team, or what has actually happened, but it's the same record either way, I think I would choose the highest highs and the lowest lows. Like I said, it's a lot of fun to talk about. It spices things up. Sure, the best case scenario is that Dallas just wins those games that they should have, and we agree they should have. But it at least made this stretch far more interesting than what I worried it was going to be when they had all these injuries piling up. And I just thought it was going to be, literally feel like a treadmill or like a hamster wheel that's just we're spinning, running, spinning. And as it turned out, there was a lot to talk about, and I think we learned more about the team this way.
And besides maybe the Celtics game, or at least 2 quarters of the Celtics game, and then the end of the Cavs game, I guess, they've been competitive in all these games too. We've seen a fight from this Dallas Mavericks team that has been really encouraging as well, that they don't just back down. It doesn't matter how many players they're down. No, they don't. Besides, I guess the Celtics game, what did it end up being? And not even a 20-point win for the Celtics. So I don't know.
It was 15. It was a 15-point loss.
Yeah, that's not getting blown out in the NBA anymore.
The second Denver game was pretty bad. Cleveland was a 12
that was 19
point.
Still.
Yeah. But none of these are even 20 points, though. So
we saw a fight with them, and I like that. I'll take that.
We did see some fight with them. I want to ask you real quick, is Omax starting to figure it out a little bit?
He's starting to figure out something. We talked about that last night on our shows. Could he be a rotation player? I think the team is just too deep for them to do that right now. I mean, when they get their top 9 back, I mean, you're talking about a top 9. Maybe he's 10 in that group, but yeah, he's starting to figure it out. You're starting to see the confidence with Omax. One of the things that he did early on in his career, I guess the beginning of last year, is that he was able to drive and get fouled and to take advantage of some of the defense bending and the defense getting caught off guard by him, taking a dribble into the lane and trying to go to the rim. And he wasn't doing that at the beginning of this season at all. He looked so timid. Obviously, his shot is something that we've talked about a lot, where he's turning down shots. And is that kid trying to tell him to drive more, and is he telling the whole team to do that, or is it just him not being confident in his shot? But either way, we're seeing him at least knock down some threes. We saw that in the Wizards game. I'm going to count that he knocked down 2 threes, because one of them was like a long 2, but it counts mentally as a 3 to me. So I'm going to count that one. And we're seeing him, get to the lane a little bit more. We're seeing him finish. We're seeing him not play so fast and sped up, which is something that he desperately needed to do. The question that Slightly asked me on the show, that I'll pose to you guys back: what would Omax have to show, and how many more times for Kid to be convinced that he should be part of that top 9 rotation in like a regular season, not a playoffs?
An entire season.
Yeah, it's tricky. I think he needs to show a little bit more defensively. I think the offense has been better than the defense. He was obviously drafted as a defensive, the idea was that he was going to be a defensive stopper. I think he's in the right places for the most part, but he is not necessarily a stopper. He's not a point of attack guy who's going to shut down. And maybe that's not his future. It doesn't matter. At some point you just have to accept that if a player has not been that early in his career, and, mixed reviews about how good he actually was at that in college, then maybe he is more of a Maxey-like player who, can switch. Like Omax, I think I'm pretty comfortable with him guarding most players. Here in a couple of years, I think he's going to size up and be able to guard centers even better. And I think that would be really valuable. Then he's really valuable, like sliding over as a low man, even if he doesn't really, isn't really necessarily a rim protector or a shot blocker. But yeah, it's the offense that stood out for me the most. And so I think the defense is showing a bit more on defense as his path to fully earn a rotation spot. That said, you mentioned the offense, and like I said, I think he's been more impressive on that side. I had to look it up. I totally agree. Him drawing fouls has been a kind of sneaky, but really effective thing he does. And so I just checked. He draws shooting fouls on 20% of his possessions that are his. That is the 99th percentile of the NBA. He has the best foul drawing rate of any NBA player, just about. I've described him before, and I mean this fully positive in this context. Like he kind of sometimes looks like an NFL player. He has like NFL player body or athleticism, and I think there's a direct correlation between that and his just constant ability to get into the lane and then just find contact somewhere. So literally 99th percentile shooting foul drawer in the NBA. That's a pretty fun thing. Needs to get his actual percentage up. He's only 57% from the line this year, but I think that can come.
He's not afraid of the contact for sure. I mean, there's a play last night where he and PJ were both in a fast break. It was a 2-on-1, and instead of just dishing back to PJ, he went up for it, and you could tell PJ afterwards hey, I was right behind you, man. And Omax was just fired up and excited that he got fouled and was doing some stuff. And so, yeah, he's not afraid of the contact, and you'll take that. But the defense, I don't know. He was expected to come in and be a stopper, but to me, I think there are some guys that come in like an Amen Thompson. I don't know if you guys watched that game last night. Oh my God, he was insane in that Celtics game.
Yeah.
He's been so good. There's some guys like that are just the S tier defenders coming out. But I think some of the other guys, it takes them a little bit to learn defense because you've got to learn the tendencies of offensive players. You've got to learn how how NBA defenses are going to, or NBA offenses are going to try to attack you and things like that. It's going to take the game slowing down again and again for Omax. And the game slowing down was one of the big things for him anyway. And so I think we could still see him emerge at that. I don't think we've written the book fully on Omax on defense.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Shout out to Frank's comment in the chat. He says Omax is like, quote, if I go to the basket, something will happen, end quote. That is
true, though.
Yeah, that's how Omax tends to play. You can find him on X at Nick Van Exit, one of my favorite X handles on the Twitter sphere or whatever we call it these days. Super WNBA fan like myself. And tell Slightly we are not the other podcast. We are the DLLS Mavs podcast. You take that message back slightly from me. All right?
He did say that. He said it. He said it on the show, and I was like, Slightly, you just said that like they were Voldemort. Like we can talk about them.
You tell them that was directly from your boy KG.
Well, that just means you guys are scared of us. On the other hand, Locked On Mavericks. Locked On Mavericks.
Wow,
Locked On Mavericks. We don't have any fear about you guys.
We ain't scared of no Locked On Mavs, okay? That's for damn sure. Nick, it's always good to see you and talk to you, my man. We'll talk to you later.
Nick.
Love you, boys.
We all silly like the mayor.